Think of your favorite games of all time. Whether it be a game a huge portion of the gaming community thinks is overrated as all hell, or one of the most obscure titles in existence. What makes it your favorite? The art design? The score? Interesting characters? Or nostalgia even? That may be so, but can you really justify it being your favorite if it has an uninteresting and bland world? In my opinion, it has to be immersive and engaging. It isn't a prop to the storytelling or the gameplay, but rather an organic component to the overall experience, rivaling the score and the gameplay itself. They lend themselves to exploration and never cease to challenge the eyes or the mind. So with that said, grab your motorbox and binoculars because today we'll be exploring my top 10 video game overworlds. Joy for all three people who care.
Welcome to City 17.
Never before have I been so intrigued by a setting I know nothing about more than City 17. From the haunting, desolate streets occupied with Combine soldiers, to the war-torn buildings filled with repressed citizens, it was almost like being introduced to a character in a movie or a literary work who you think might be a good guy, possibly with nefarious intents, but you're not exactly sure. This city is the equivalent of that. After meeting up with Dr. Kleiner and having a bit of a teleportation mishap, you find yourself fending for your life out in the wastes of what remains in the city. At least for a brief while. Eventually you escape and do video game things like Ravenholm and killing more soldiers and such. But in Half-Life 2 Episode 1, however, the entire game takes place in the city, and man, you just need to play it to get a sense of what it is. For a game that was released over a decade ago and could express this sort of helplessness for a city, I just have to say, there could be no better setting for a game as great as this. Without City 17, Half-Life 2 would not be the game it is today. Maybe. Have you ever just really wanted to explore a vast, open-ended, post-apocalyptic world filled with terrors of the night, radiated creatures with a thirst for blood, or maybe some asshole mercenaries too drunk to shoot straight? Yeah, me too. The various wastelands featured in the Fallout games might be the perfect place for you. No matter which game in the series you play, you're bound to find something different. With an abundance of variety per locale, there's never a shortage of new places to visit or new terrain to conquer. From New California to the Mojave Wasteland, life is a struggle, and never before have I felt more delight in seeing or experiencing such a thing. When I say it out loud like that, it sounds pretty bad actually. Maybe I deserve to get pummeled to a pulp by super mutants or maimed and murdered by a deathclaw. Yeah, that sounds about right. And I guess for all the fanboys screaming at their monitors that I chose the Capital Wasteland over Skyrim, it was a close call, alright? It was very close. Well, not that close really, but maybe one day. I would be remiss not to include something from a Mario game. From side-scroller to 3D platformer, the Mushroom Kingdom, or in certain cases, the goddamn universe, each Mario game typically does something interesting with their overworld hub, with Peach's Castle being one of my personal favorites and the Comet Observatory being less than stellar. There is one that shines above the rest. It hoses down the competition and blasts them out of the park with zero remorse for their watery fate. Yeah, it's Delfino Plaza from Super Mario Sunshine. For as much flack as this game supposedly gets, it certainly has a huge fan base nowadays for whatever reason. And for being a game nowhere near the Mushroom Kingdom, what with having no stars, Koopa Troopas, or Goombas, this game breaks a lot of traditional 3D Mario tropes. Well, except for saving Princess Peach and killing Bowser. And whatever the hell these toads are doing. I don't know. For as small as Delfino Plaza is, however, it sure does lead to a lot of places, many of them accessible through very questionable teleporters. I wonder if anybody had ever really taken the time to fully develop this technology because, man, if that isn't the most convenient method of transportation, I don't even know what is. I mean, yeah, a couple of guys here and there would probably be, put out of work, but, I mean, that would seriously help in so many circumstances. But I digress. Delfino Plaza is awesome, okay? I mean, from the breathtaking shores of Serena Beach to the nauseating heights of the sky in Pianta Village, I could sit around and watch these plant people do, whatever it is they do, all day long. Or at least for a minute. I have a small attention span, what can I say? Wonderland from the American McGee Alice games, with the first being released in 2000 and the direct sequel 11 years later. The psychological horror games were received exceptionally well, and by that I mean a lot of people either thought they were pretty average or were fairly ambivalent about the entire thing. Both weren't without some problems, but if there's one thing that was unanimous about its acclaim, is its austere setting. Wonderland is absolutely terrifying and engulfing. I love the macabre, grim, morbid environments of the land, and the characters help flesh it out. No pun intended. I mean, look at that. I mean, look at it! What? For as simplistic as some of the areas are, they really do get creative. From the depths of the sea to random cards flying in the air, there was no limit to Mr. McGee's imagination when it came to Wonderland. Not to mention that in Madness Returns, every time you ended a chapter, you would return to reality, which, ironically enough, actually turned out to be creepier than Wonderland itself. Yeah, how about that? As a man not entitled to the sweat of his brow? No, says the man in Washington. It belongs to the poor. No, says the man in the Vatican. It belongs to God. No, says the man in Moscow. It belongs to everyone. I rejected those answers. Instead, I chose something different. I chose the impossible. I chose Rapture. Rapture can become your city as well, ladies and gentlemen. This haunting underwater dystopia tells so many stories of the past. So much hope and intrigue lies within these pressure-proof walls that seeing the city in its state of affairs is all but condemning. I mean, look at that. And look at that. Oh my God. It took my breath away. The audio diaries that lie strewn about only add to the melancholic nature of the derelict, submerged metropolis. And when you catch glimpses of history with various citizens, politicians, and villains that once resided here, in the end, what separates a man from a slave? Money? Power? No. A man chooses, a slave obeys. We all know horror games are about the atmosphere, the tension and sense of helplessness when you find yourself at a dead end with a dog about to tear your shit up. So this leads us to an impasse because so many great horror games take place in extremely memorable locations. However, my personal favorite has definitely got to be the USG Ishimura from the Dead Space series. After receiving a distress call on a routine mining excavation, a crew is dispatched to the starship to investigate, only to find that all the miners have been murdered. Now it's up to our intrepid hero Isaac Clarke to investigate the entirety of the ship in order to make the proper reparations so he and the two other survivors can escape. Not only is the atmosphere dark and brooding, but not many games of this size take place entirely on board a destitute spaceship filled with necromorphs, disgusting alien creature things that will mess your shit up in a variety of ways that include torture, maiming, decapitation, dismemberment, smushing, decapitation, and death by seduction. What makes this even better is the fact that at one point in Dead Space 2, you actually return to the Ishimura in a state after having been recovered and decontaminated from the planet it was mining on, which, unsurprisingly, was infinitely more creepy the second time around. Grab your tool belt because that is some scary shit. Journey, a game developed by that game company in 2012 for the PlayStation 3, you take on the role of a robed figure in a seemingly endless desert. With no dialogue, narrative, or any indication of a clear backstory, your only goal is to journey to the looming mountain in the distance. The world is simultaneously vibrant, dreary, and foreboding, all relayed within the first several minutes of gameplay. This is substantiated by the fantastic score by Austin Wintory that takes the melancholy of the somber air, enigmatic structure, and atmosphere of these mysterious plains and gives it a conscience. I can't even convey how I felt the first time playing this game. I could walk the desert for hours with a nameless friend who wants nothing more than to beat the game for those easy trophies. Yeah, you know the guy. But this particular entry might have a bit of a bias considering how much of an impact the isolated environment has with the music, but even without it, I'm confident it could stand firmly alone as a land to be reckoned with. Donkey Kong has one of the greatest, no, hold on, wrong script, Conker's Bad Fur Day is quite possibly... No, it's not right. Banjo-Kazooie... hold on. Okay. Rare games have always been at the top of my boat since the olden days of sitting in the living room in the middle of the dark on a school night, television remote nearby in case a wandering parent decided to take a romp through the house for a piss or booze break. Yeah, great memories. This one I can mostly attribute to nostalgia, but unsurprisingly, these games hold up exceptionally well, even without shitty sequels or remakes that are better off unmentioned. You've got the unforgettable locations of each game, such as Spiral Mountain in Banjo, and most of the levels in Diddy's Conquest, and whatever the hell this place was. But the way some of these levels are connected and intertwined is absolutely magnificent, from the music's subtly shifting instruments as you enter a different part of a level to the lack of it in certain cases. These games and the world they take place in are amazing, so breathtaking. They give me every time. I don't know, is there any other way they can put it? I love it. So it should come to no surprise that Zelda would make it onto the list in some form or another. However, not all Zelda games take place in the same setting. For example, we have Hyrule no Ocarina of Time, Termina and Majora's Mask, The Great Sea and Wind Waker, The Adventures of Link. You get the picture. Plainly put, they are all exceptional. Even Skyward Sword has something good going for it, right? Right? But while they're all great and have something fantastic to deliver, the best one definitely has to go to Zelda 3, A Link to the Past. Again, this really should come as no surprise to anyone because Hyrule in Link to the Past is easily the most realized world in all of the Zelda games, aside from possibly the first game. Nearly every area is accessible from the get-go, and there are very few restrictions prohibiting you from exploring the world from top to bottom. Yeah, you've got places like that in Wind Waker and Majora's Mask you can discover. But look, you need to jump this fence to continue, or look, I don't have a land title date for this what? And especially in the more recent 3D Zelda games such as Skyward Sword, you basically have no sense of true exploration or discovery. You can't accidentally stumble onto anything that you're not supposed to get early on. You're just there for the ride, shoehorned from plot point to plot point with the occasional, "Hey, I'ma stop you and you're gonna die." These games don't promote exploration, but simply demand traversing along a predetermined route. It really makes you wonder why they place such a huge emphasis on the world and environment you're journeying through if you're just gonna have to go along a set path anyway. Link to the Past destroys this concept completely before it even began as a trope. You see Death Mountain and you think, oh yeah, I wanna go there, and I wanna explore, save the princess, see what cool shit I can pick up, but there's a giant rock in the way. How do I get rid of it? And that promotes exploration. Same thing with the temple buried in the desert and nearly every other location in the game, actually. And it does it without being extremely vague and oblique. Ocarina actually delves a little into this particular kind of exploration as well, but we'll explore that notion later. For the time being, I'm putting all my rupees into Link to the Past. There's intrigue in the broken structures. The natural formation of the land is captivating. With so many different directions to go and so much to do, it's a wonder anyone can get through this game in a reasonable amount of time. Man, I'm telling you what, this isn't even counting the lairs the Colossi are hidden in. The Forbidden Lands from Shadow of the Colossus has got to be, hands down, the most desolate, haunting, beautiful world in all of video games. Well, mostly out of the ones I've played, which is only like 6. This world encapsulates the deep-rooted feeling of adventure despite the fact that the game is heavily linear. However, the game inspires you to explore by putting fruit and geckos for you to kill to increase your health and stamina to help wage your inner turmoil against the colossal creatures. The Lonesome Land houses 16 colossi, some with whom you take to the skies while others are fought in derelict buildings and remote underground temples. The lack of a concise plot or backstory to help enrich the history of these environments end up actually augmenting a lot of fan-made theories about the desolate world. And that, in my opinion, is one of the only cases where a could-be is much more substantial than a has-been. And that is why I believe Shadow of the Colossus deserves the top slot on this list. So, what'd you think? Are you disappointed by the lack of any Pokemon game or the universe of Mass Effect? How about that obscure JRPG or Final Fantasy game I neglected to mention? Let me know what you guys would have picked or like to have seen, but hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.